At 14:23 on the afternoon of November 9th, 1942, Sergeant Dmitri Volkov centered his crosshairs on a German soldier's chest for the fourth time in 6 days and once again chose not to pull the trigger. The German was 240 meters away, moving through the rubble of what had been a textile factory on the western edge of Stalingrad. He was carrying a rifle, a canvas bag, no helmet. Young, maybe 20 years old, Volkov had him cold. Perfect shot, clear background, no wind. The Mosin Nagant rifle in Volkov's hands was zeroed at exactly this distance, 3.5 kilograms of trigger pull. Volkov had made harder shots in worse conditions. He had made shots at 400 meters in snowstorms. He had made shots at moving targets from unstable positions. This shot was easy. This shot was a gift. Volkov watched the German disappear behind a collapsed wall and lowered his rifle. 28 years old, Ukrainian, 43 confirmed kills since August. 0 misses in the past 2 months. Volkov was not the most famous sniper in Stalingrad. That honor belonged to Vasily Zaitsev, whose kill count was approaching 100. But Volkov was efficient. He never wasted ammunition. He never took shots he could not make. And until 6 days ago, he had never let a target walk away. The German soldier Volkov had just spared was the same German soldier he had spared 3 times before. November 3rd at 09:15, November 5th at 16:40, November 7th at 11:30. 4 opportunities, 4 decisions not to shoot. Volkov did not understand why he was making these decisions. He only knew that something about this particular German soldier made him hesitate. Something about the way the man moved. Something about his face. Something Volkov could not name but could not ignore. To understand why Volkov hesitated, you need to understand what Stalingrad was in November 1942. The city had been fighting since late August. The Germans had pushed the Soviet defenders back to the Volga River. The Soviets held a narrow strip of ruined city along the river's western bank, sometimes only a few hundred meters deep. The fighting was house to house, room to room, sometimes hand to hand. A soldier could control a building in the morning and be dead in that same building by afternoon. The front line was not a line. It was a 3-dimensional maze of rubble and cellars and shattered walls where Soviet and German positions were sometimes separated by a single floor or a single wall. Snipers operated in this environment like hunters in a forest. They found positions with clear sightlines. They watched, they waited, they shot. Volkov had been a sniper since October 19th. Before that, he had been a rifleman in the 308th Rifle Division. His company had been destroyed in the fighting for the Barakati gun factory. Out of 120 men, 11 survived. Volkov was one of them. A captain named Batyuk had watched Volkov shoot a German machine gunner at 300 meters with iron sights during the factory fighting. Batyuk asked Volkov if he had hunted before the war. Volkov said yes. Deer, boar, sometimes wolves in the forests near his village in Ukraine. Batyuk handed him a Mosin Nagant with a PE scope and told him he was now a sniper. That had been 3 weeks ago. In those 3 weeks, Volkov had killed 43 Germans. He kept count in a small notebook. Each kill had a date, a time, a distance, and a brief description. Number 1. October 19th, 08:45, 180 meters, German officer with binoculars. Number 2, October 19th, 14:30, 210 meters, German rifleman carrying ammunition. Number 3, October 20th, 07:20, 350 meters, German machine gunner. The notebook continued for 43 entries. Volkov did not write about the men he killed. He wrote about the shots, the mechanics, the conditions, wind, light, distance, position. He treated each kill like a technical problem that had been solved. This approach kept him sane. If he thought about the men, as people with families and histories and futures, he would not be able to continue. So he thought about them as targets, shapes in his scope, problems to solve. Until November 3rd, when he saw the German soldier with no helmet for the first time. November 3rd at 09:15. Volkov was positioned in the third floor of a destroyed apartment building overlooking Solnekhnaya Street. The building had no roof. Most of the walls were gone. Volkov had created a hide in what remained of a bedroom, using rubble and a section of collapsed ceiling for concealment. He had been there since 05:30, watching the German positions across the street. At 09:12, movement. A German soldier emerged from a basement entrance 70 meters south of Volkov's position. The man moved quickly, staying low, using the rubble for cover. He was carrying a rifle and a canvas bag. No helmet, unusual. Every German soldier Volkov had seen wore a helmet. This one did not. The man's hair was dark, cut short. His face was thin. He looked young. The German moved north along Solnekhnaya Street, parallel to Volkov's position. Volkov tracked him through the scope. At 09:15, the German stopped behind a low wall and looked east toward the Soviet positions. He was now 200 meters from Volkov. Perfect range. Volkov put the crosshairs on the man's chest. Center mass. The shot that never missed. Volkov controlled his breathing. He began to apply pressure to the trigger. Then the German did something unexpected. He reached into his canvas bag and pulled out a piece of bread. He broke the bread in half and ate one half slowly, deliberately, as if he had all the time in the world. Then he put the other half back in the bag. Volkov watched this through the scope. The German was eating breakfast in the middle of a battlefield, sitting behind a low wall, completely exposed to sniper fire, eating bread as if he were sitting at a kitchen table. Volkov found this fascinating. The man was either extraordinarily brave or extraordinarily stupid. Volkov decided he was brave. He lowered his rifle. The German finished eating, picked up his rifle, and moved on. Volkov wrote in his notebook, November 3rd, 09:15, 200 meters, German soldier eating bread, did not fire. He did not know why he had written this. He had never recorded a shot he did not take. November 5th, at 16:40. Volkov was in a different position, a ruined factory building on the northern edge of the Red October steel plant. He had killed 2 Germans that morning, both at long range, both clean kills. At 16:38, the same German soldier appeared. Volkov recognized him immediately. No helmet, canvas bag, young face. The German was moving west through the factory ruins, staying low, moving carefully. Good fieldcraft. This man had been trained well. At 16:40, the German stopped and knelt behind a section of collapsed machinery. He was 260 meters from Volkov, longer range than the previous encounter, but still an easy shot. Volkov centered the crosshairs. The German opened his canvas bag and pulled out a small book. He opened the book and began reading. Volkov watched through the scope, confused. The German soldier was reading in the middle of a combat zone. Volkov could see the man's lips moving slightly. He was reading aloud, or perhaps just mouthing the words. After 2 minutes, the German closed the book, put it back in the bag, and moved on. Volkov did not fire. He wrote in his notebook. November 5th, 1640, 260 meters, same German soldier reading book, did not fire. That night, Volkov sat in the basement shelter with 3 other snipers from his unit. They were cleaning their rifles and eating their rations, thin soup and hard bread. One of the snipers, a man named Petrov, asked Volkov how many kills he had made that day. Volkov said 2. Petrov said he had made 3. Another sniper, a woman named Ludmila Pavlichenko, said she had made 4. The 4th sniper said nothing. He was new, only 5 kills total, still learning. Petrov asked Volkov if he had seen anything unusual. Volkov almost mentioned the German soldier with no helmet, the one who read books in combat zones. He decided not to. He said no, nothing unusual. But that night, Volkov could not sleep. He kept thinking about the German reading the book. What book was it? Poetry? A novel? A letter from home? Why was the man reading in the middle of a battle? Was he trying to preserve some piece of civilization in the middle of barbarism? Was he reminding himself that a world existed beyond Stalingrad, a world with books and quiet and safety? Volkov understood this impulse. He carried his own small book, a collection of Pushkin's poems that his mother had given him before the war. He had not read it in months. The book sat at the bottom of his pack, wrapped in oilcloth to protect it from moisture. He had forgotten it was there. The German soldier had reminded him. November 7th at 11:30. Volkov was positioned in the wreckage of a school building near the Volga riverbank. The school had been beautiful once. Volkov could see remnants of murals on the walls, faded paintings of workers and farmers and children. Now the walls were pocked with bullet holes and blackened with fire. At 11:28, the German soldier appeared again. He was moving south along the riverbank, exposed, visible. 240 meters. Volkov tracked him through the scope. This time the German was not eating or reading. He was moving with purpose, rifle ready, head scanning left and right. Combat movement. Professional. At 11:30, the German stopped and knelt beside a destroyed truck. He set down his rifle and opened his canvas bag. He pulled out something small. Volkov adjusted his scope focus. It was a photograph. The German was looking at a photograph. Volkov watched the man's face. Even at 240 meters, even through the scope, Volkov could see the expression change. The hardness that soldiers wore like armor softened. The man's shoulders dropped, his head tilted slightly. He was looking at the photograph the way a man looks at something precious. Family, probably. Wife, children, parents. Someone he loved, someone waiting for him. The German looked at the photograph for approximately 90 seconds. Then he put it back in the bag, picked up his rifle, and moved on. Volkov did not fire. He wrote in his notebook. November 7th, 11:30, 240 meters, same German soldier looking at photograph, did not fire. Volkov sat in his position for another 3 hours after the German disappeared. He did not see any other targets. He did not take any other shots. He just sat and thought about the photograph. He wondered who was in it. He wondered if the people in the photograph knew their soldier was in Stalingrad. He wondered if they knew what Stalingrad was doing to the men fighting there. Volkov had his own photograph carried in his breast pocket. His wife, Katya, taken in 1939, before the war. She was smiling. She had been dead for 8 months, killed in the German bombardment of Kiev. Volkov had received the letter in October. His mother had written it. 3 sentences. Katya is dead. The building collapsed. She did not suffer. Volkov had read the letter once. Then he had put it in his pack with the book of Pushkin's poems. He had not taken it out since. He did not need to read it again. The words were burned into his memory. After he received the letter, Volkov had gone out on patrol and killed 3 Germans in 2 hours. He felt nothing, not satisfaction, not revenge, nothing. He realized that killing Germans would not bring Katya back. It would not change anything. But it was what he had been ordered to do, so he continued doing it. Until he saw the German soldier looking at the photograph. Then something changed. Volkov realized the German had someone he loved, someone waiting, just like Volkov had once had. The difference was the German's loved one might still be alive, might still be waiting. Volkov could take that away with one trigger pull. He chose not to. November 9th, at 14:23. The fourth encounter. Volkov was back in the textile factory area, positioned in a bombed-out office building that gave him a clear view of the approaches from the German lines. He had been there since dawn. He had killed one German at 07:30, a clean shot at 300 meters, then nothing for 7 hours. At 14:20, the German soldier appeared. Same man, no helmet, canvas bag, moving through the rubble 240 meters away. Volkov put the crosshairs on his chest immediately. This was the fourth time. 4 chances. Volkov thought about the bread, the book, the photograph. He thought about Katya. He thought about whoever was waiting for this German. He thought about how easy the shot was. Center mass, 240 meters, no wind. He would not miss. The German would be dead before he heard the shot. Clean. Professional. What snipers were trained to do. Volkov's finger moved to the trigger. 3.5 kilograms of pressure. That was all it would take. He had applied that pressure 43 times. This would be 44. The German stopped walking and knelt behind a section of wall. He was checking something, looking down at the ground, maybe examining tracks or looking for a route forward. His chest was fully exposed. Perfect target. Volkov began to squeeze. Then he stopped. Not this time. Not this man. Volkov did not understand his decision. He only knew he was making it. He lowered the rifle and watched the German stand up and move away. The man disappeared behind a collapsed building. Volkov sat in his position and felt something he had not felt in months. Confusion. He was confused about why he kept sparing this German. He was confused about what it meant. He was confused about whether he was becoming weak or becoming human again. At 15:10, gunfire erupted from the south. Automatic weapons, Soviet PSH submachine guns. The sound was close, maybe 100 meters away. Then single rifle shots. Then silence. Volkov waited. At 15:35, 3 Soviet soldiers appeared, moving through the rubble from the south. Volkov recognized one of them, a corporal named Yuri from the reconnaissance platoon. Yuri saw Volkov's position and waved. Volkov waved back. Yuri and the 2 soldiers approached. When they reached Volkov's building, Yuri called up. He said they had killed a German soldier. He asked if Volkov wanted to check the body for intelligence, maps, orders, anything useful. Volkov climbed down from his position and followed Yuri south through the rubble. The German soldier was lying on his back in a small courtyard between 2 destroyed buildings. He had been shot multiple times. The canvas bag was beside him. His rifle was 2 meters away where it had fallen. Volkov looked at the man's face and felt his stomach drop. No helmet, dark hair, young. It was him. The German Volkov had spared 4 times was now dead, killed by someone else. Yuri was searching the body, checking pockets. He pulled out a wallet, some papers, a small metal tin, standard items. Then he pulled out something else, a letter, folded, worn, carried in the man's breast pocket. Yuri opened it and glanced at it. He said it was in German. He could not read German. He asked if Volkov could. Volkov said no. He lied. He could read German. His grandmother had been German from a village near Odessa. She had taught him the language when he was young. Yuri handed the letter to Volkov and told him to give it to the political officer. Maybe they could use it for propaganda. Then Yuri and the 2 soldiers moved on, continuing their patrol. Volkov stood alone in the courtyard with the dead German and the letter. He looked at the body. The man's eyes were open. Volkov had seen hundreds of dead men. This one affected him differently. This was the man he had chosen to spare 4 times. Now he was dead anyway. Volkov's mercy had been meaningless. The man had died regardless. Volkov unfolded the letter and began reading. The letter was dated October 5th, 1942. It was written in neat, careful handwriting. It began, "My dearest Otto." Volkov read the entire letter standing in the courtyard. It took him 4 minutes. When he finished, he folded it carefully and put it in his pocket. He did not give it to the political officer. He would never give it to anyone. The letter was from Otto's wife. Her name was Greta. She wrote about their small apartment in Munich. She wrote about their daughter, Anna, who was 3 years old and learning to speak in full sentences. She wrote about how Anna asked about her father every day, and how Greta told her that Papa was away working but would come home soon. She wrote about the ration shortages and the air raid sirens, and how the city was changing, becoming harder, more afraid. Then she wrote about something else. She wrote that she had received Otto's last letter, the one where he described Stalingrad. She wrote that she understood he was in a terrible place doing terrible things. She wrote that she did not judge him for what he had to do to survive. She wrote that she knew the war had changed him and would continue to change him. Then she wrote this: "When you come home, whenever that is, please remember that you are still the man I married. You are still Anna's father. You are still Otto. The war will try to take that from you. Do not let it. Carry something of yourself through this. Carry something that reminds you of who you were before. Read your books. Look at our photograph. Eat slowly when you can. Do small human things. These things are not weakness. They are what will bring you home to us, not just in body, but in spirit. I love you. Come home. Greta." Volkov stood in the courtyard holding the letter and understood everything. The bread eaten slowly, the book read in a combat zone, the photograph looked at with such care. Otto had been following his wife's advice. He had been carrying small pieces of humanity through hell. He had been trying to remain human, and Volkov had seen it. Without knowing why, Volkov had recognized another man trying not to become a monster. That was why he had not fired. Not because Otto was brave, not because he was young, but because Otto was doing the same thing Volkov had stopped doing. Otto was refusing to let the war erase him. Volkov had let it happen. After Katya died, Volkov had stopped reading Pushkin. He had stopped looking at her photograph. He had stopped doing anything that reminded him of the world before. He had become purely functional, a weapon, a tool. He killed because that was what he was ordered to do. He did it well because he had always done things well, but he had stopped being Dmitri. He had become only Sergeant Volkov, sniper, 43 kills. Otto had kept being Otto. And now Otto was dead. Volkov returned to his unit that evening. He did not report the letter. He went to his shelter, a basement room he shared with 2 other soldiers. He waited until they were asleep. Then he took out his pack and removed the book of Pushkin's poems and the letter from his mother about Katya. He sat on the floor with a small oil lamp and opened the book. He had not opened it since before Kiev. The pages were yellowed, slightly damp despite the oilcloth. He read a poem called "Winter Evening." He remembered his mother reading it to him when he was a child. The poem described a snowstorm and a small house, and the feeling of being safe inside while the world raged outside. Volkov read it twice. Then he took out the photograph of Katya. He had not looked at it since receiving the news of her death. He forced himself to look now. She was smiling. She had always smiled easily. She had been kind. She had worked as a teacher in a primary school. She had loved children. She had wanted children of their own. They had been planning to start a family after the war. There would be no family now, no children, no future, just the photograph and the memory. Volkov looked at the photograph for a long time. Then he put it back in his breast pocket, where he could feel it when he moved. He would carry it there, not hidden in his pack, right over his heart. The next morning, November 10th, Volkov went back to his sniper position. He killed a German officer at 09:30, a necessary kill. The officer was directing artillery fire onto Soviet positions. Volkov made the shot at 400 meters in a crosswind. Difficult shot, clean kill. He wrote it in his notebook, number 44. Then he sat in his position and ate his breakfast slowly, hard bread and cold tea. He ate the way Otto had eaten, deliberately, as if the act of eating mattered, as if he were still human. In the afternoon, Volkov saw another German soldier moving through the rubble. Young man, maybe 25, helmet, rifle, moving quickly. Valid target. Volkov put him in his crosshairs. Then he looked at the man's face. The soldier was afraid. Volkov could see it in the way he moved, the way his head jerked at every sound. This man did not want to be here. This man wanted to go home. Volkov lowered his rifle. Not this one, not today. The German disappeared into the ruins. Volkov did not know if this man had a wife or a daughter or a letter in his pocket telling him to stay human. He only knew that letting him live cost nothing and might mean something. Volkov fought in Stalingrad until February 2nd, 1943, when the German 6th Army surrendered. He survived the battle. His final kill count was 68. 25 of those kills came after November 9th. Each one was necessary. Each one was a legitimate military target. Officers directing fire, machine gunners killing Soviet infantry, snipers hunting Soviet soldiers. Volkov killed when he needed to kill, but he also let targets go when they were not immediate threats. Young soldiers moving alone, medics with red crosses, men who looked like they were only trying to survive. This was not mercy. This was choice. Volkov was choosing to remain someone who could make distinctions, someone who had not been completely consumed by the war. After Stalingrad, Volkov was sent to a hospital in the rear for treatment of frostbite and malnutrition. He spent 6 weeks recovering. In March 1943, he was assigned to a training unit to teach new snipers. He taught for 8 months. In November 1943, he was returned to combat duty with the 1st Ukrainian Front. He fought through Ukraine, through Poland, into Germany. He was wounded twice, once in the shoulder in June 1944 and once in the leg in January 1945. Both times he recovered and returned to duty. The war ended for Volkov on May 2nd, 1945, in Berlin. His unit had fought through the city for 2 weeks. On May 2nd, the German forces in Berlin surrendered. Volkov was in a building near the Reichstag when the order came down. Cease fire. The war in Europe was over. Volkov's final kill count was 114. He never spoke about Stalingrad to anyone. He never mentioned Otto. He carried the letter for the rest of his life, but he never showed it to anyone. After the war, Volkov returned to Ukraine. His village had been destroyed. His family home was gone. His mother had died during the occupation. He had no one left. He moved to Kiev and found work as a machinist in a factory. He married again in 1948. Her name was Irina. She was a widow. Her first husband had been killed at Kursk. They had 2 children, a son and a daughter. Volkov told Irina he had been a soldier. He did not tell her he had been a sniper. He did not tell her about the 114 men he had killed. He did not tell her about Otto. He worked at the factory for 37 years. He retired in 1982. He died in 1993 at the age of 79. After his death, Irina found the letter in a box in their apartment. She could not read German. She had it translated. When she learned what it said, she understood something about her husband that she had never known. She understood that he had carried someone else's humanity with him for 50 years. She understood that the war had not destroyed him completely. He had brought something back. The letter was donated to a museum in Kiev, along with Volkov's notebook and his copy of Pushkin's poems. The museum curator who received the items was a woman named Svetlana Ivanova. She read the letter and the notebook. She noticed that after November 9, 1942, Volkov's entries changed slightly. Before that date, each entry was purely technical: date, time, distance, description of target. After November 9th, some entries included additional notes, not many, maybe one in every 10, but they were there. Number 53, January 12th, 1943, 320 meters, German machine gunner, necessary kill. Number 61, February 1st, 1943, 200 meters, German officer calling artillery, necessary kill. Number 79, June 6th, 1944, 400 meters, German sniper hunting Soviet patrol, necessary kill. The word necessary appeared 41 times in the notebook after November 9th. It never appeared before that date. Ivanova realized what this meant. After Otto, after the letter, Volkov had started making judgments. He had started distinguishing between kills he had to make and kills he chose not to make. He had stopped being a weapon and had become a soldier again, a soldier who could choose. The museum created an exhibit about Volkov in 1995. The exhibit included his rifle, his notebook, his book of poems, and Otto's letter. The exhibit was titled "The Sniper Who Remembered." It described Volkov's service, his kill count, his survival, but it focused on November 9th, 1942. The day Volkov spared a German soldier 4 times, the day that soldier died anyway. The day Volkov read the letter and decided to remain human. The exhibit included a translation of Greta's letter. Visitors would read it and stand silently afterward. Some would cry, some would just stand there, thinking. In 2007, a German historian named Klaus Becker visited the museum while researching a book about Stalingrad. He saw the exhibit. He read the letter. He noticed the name, Otto. He checked his research files. He had collected records of German casualties from Stalingrad. He found an Obergefreiter Otto Richter, killed November 9th, 1942. 3rd Company, 389th Infantry Regiment, age 26. Hometown Munich, wife Greta, daughter Anna. Becker spent 2 years trying to locate Otto's family. He found Anna Richter in 2009. She was 67 years old, living in Frankfurt. Her mother, Greta, had died in 1988. Becker contacted Anna and told her about the exhibit in Kiev. He told her about her father's letter, about Volkov, about the 4 times Volkov had spared Otto before someone else killed him. Anna flew to Kiev in September 2009. She visited the museum. She saw her father's letter displayed in a glass case. She saw Volkov's notebook. She saw the rifle Volkov had used. She stood in front of the exhibit for 40 minutes. Then she asked to speak with the curator. Ivanova met with her in the museum office. Anna asked if she could have a copy of the letter. Ivanova said yes and made a photocopy. Anna held the copy and read it. She had never seen this letter. Her mother had never shown it to her. Anna asked Ivanova if she knew whether Volkov had a family. Ivanova said yes, a wife, 2 children. The wife was still alive, living in Kiev. Anna asked if she could meet her. Ivanova contacted Irina. Irina agreed. They met in Irina's apartment 3 days later. Anna and Irina both elderly women, both widows of the war. They sat at Irina's kitchen table and drank tea. Anna told Irina that her father had carried this letter through Stalingrad. She told Irina that her mother's words had kept him human. She told Irina that she was grateful that Dmitri had tried to spare him. Even though it did not matter in the end, even though Otto died anyway, the mercy had mattered. Irina told Anna that Dmitri had never spoken about Otto, but she knew the letter had changed him. She knew because after the war, Dmitri had done small human things. He read poetry. He looked at photographs. He ate slowly. He had carried something back from the war. Not just his body, his spirit. Anna said that was what her mother had asked her father to do. Come home not just in body, but in spirit. Irina said that was what Otto had done for Dmitri. By trying to stay human himself, by following Greta's advice, Otto had reminded Dmitri that humanity was still possible, even in Stalingrad, even in hell. The two women sat together for 2 hours. When Anna left, she thanked Irina. She said meeting her had given her something she did not know she needed. She said it had closed something that had been open for 67 years. If this story reached you, hit that like button right now. Every like pushes this story to someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We are rescuing these forgotten stories every day. Stories about choices made in impossible circumstances, about humanity surviving in the darkest places. Comment below and tell us where you are watching from. United States, Germany, Russia, Ukraine, anywhere in the world. Tell us if someone in your family served. Tell us what this story means to you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for remembering Dmitri Volkov and Otto Richter, and the mercy that mattered even when it changed nothing. These stories deserve to be told, and you are making that possible.